Hello and welcome to December 11, 2022 New York Times Hard Sudoku. There are quite a large number of givens, I think, so perhaps this will be one of the easy ones. We will have to see. There's a clear single up here, and it's got to be a 3 because of this 3 and this 3 and this 3. And scanning right now, these two 3s and the 3 here force a 3 into this cell like so. And now this 3 and this 3 and these two 3s force a 3 here. And that's almost it for the 3s. While we've got these two 3s, we need to find a 3 for this row 4. It needs to go in one of these 3 cells. It cannot go in this cell or in this cell because of these two 3s. So this is where it goes. And I think that's it for the 3s. That was a little easy, I think. Let's see what else is happening. As usual, I will just go through the grid and see what kind of a mental notes I can make. There's an 8 here, and that forces an 8 in one of these two cells. There's an 8 here and here, therefore one of these two cells will have to be an 8. And when I say that, it means that I'm not concerning myself anymore with 8 in these two cells. So now I will only look for 8s in these 4 cells. And of course, this cell cannot be an 8 because of this 8. And the 8 here will now force an 8 into one of these two cells. I'm also seeing that the 9 here blocks these cells and the 9 here blocks these 3 cells. So a 9 will also have to go into one of these 3 cells. And therefore, because of the 9 here, a 9 will go in one of these 3 cells in box 1. The 2 and 5 here, the 2 and 5 here will force a 2 and a 5 into two of these cells here. We need to find a 1, 6, and a 9 to complete this column. There's a 1 and a 9 already in the bottom row, so this cell now must be a 6. And let's see. That gives us a remote 1-9 pair here and here. And the bottom row needs a 2, 5, 7, and an 8. There's a 2, 5, 7 that can all block this cell, therefore this must be an 8. And now this 8 and this 8, together with these two 8s here, puts an 8 in this cell, like so. These 3 cells now have to be a 2, 5, and a 7. And remember a moment ago, we discussed how an 8 will have to go in one of these two cells. Let me repeat the reason. And the reason is that we have these two 8s here. And now that we have this 8 here, this cell now becomes an 8. One of these two cells must be a 5 because the 5 blocks these two cells and the 5 here blocks these two cells. And that means that a ghost 5 up here and this 5 force a 5 into this cell or this cell. This cell here must be a 1 or a 6 because we need to find a 1, 2, 5, 6, and a 9 for this row. There's a 2, 5, and a 9 already in this column, so this is a 1 or a 6, and we need to find space for the 2, 5, and 9 among these 4 empty cells. And that's not immediately obvious where they have to go. But because one of these cells will have to be a 5, and this cell cannot be a 5 because of the 5 here, this cell also cannot be a 5 because of this 5. Now we know that one of these two cells will have to be a 5. And because of the 6 here and the 6 here, one of these two cells will have to be a 6. And this cell, of course, must be a 5 or a 7 because this column here needs a 1, 4, 5, 7, and a 9. There's a 1, 4, and a 9 already in this row. So this is a 5, 7, and this is just a 5 candidate. The 7 here blocks these cells, and the 7 here blocks these cells, making this a 7. And now one of these two up here will have to be a 7. And because we found this 7 and this 7, we know that this must be a 7. These two empty cells have to be a 1 and a 6. The 1 up here puts a 1 here and a 6 here. And that, of course, makes this cell a 6. Remember how one of these two needed to be a 6? Now, this one cannot be a 6. And this 6 and this 6 block all the other cells in this 3 by 3 box. So the 6 goes here. And now I think that we are closing in on something in the first column. Let's see, the 2 here forces a 2 in one of these two cells, right? And therefore, because of the 2 here, one of these two cells must be a 2. And because of the 8 here and the 8 here, one of these two cells will have to be an 8. So we have found a 2 and an 8 for column 1. The other digits have to be a 5 and a 9. Let's see. We know that a 9 needs to go in one of these three cells. We discussed that at the beginning of the puzzle, didn't we? Because of the 9 here blocking these cells and the 9 here blocking these cells. So now we found a 2, 8, and a 9 to share these three cells. And that makes this a 5. And now I'm interested in these 4 empty cells. They need to be a 2, 4, 6, and a 9. Let's look at that. We know that a 2 can't go here because this 2 puts a 2 either here or here. And we also know that a 6 and a 9 can't go here. Ergo, this must be a 4, mustn't it? And that would put a 4 in this cell. And now these have to be a 2, 6, and a 9. And of course, these have to be a 1, 5, and a 6. It's interesting how all of these 3 empty blocks of cells can't be resolved easily. And that's not exactly true, is it? Because we got the 2 here and the 2 here. I just spotted that. And that puts a 2 here. And this is now a 6 or a 9. And this is a 6 or a 9. Anyway, it's a little progress. And there's another 2 we found, and it needs to go here because of this 2 blocking these 2 cells and this 2 blocking these 3 cells. This is now a 2. And since we know that this has got to be a 1 or a 9, and this already is covered by this 2, we can plug in a 2 here, like so. And in addition to the 5 and a 7 candidates here, we have 5 and a 7 candidates here as well. For this row here, we need to find a 1, 4, 6, and a 7. There's a 4 and a 7, and they are blocking this, so this has to be a 1 or a 6. There's a 6 or a 7 here. This has got to be a 1 or a 4. And a 6 and a 1 here. This is now a 4 or a 7. While that is mildly interesting, it's not helping me at all. I seem to have a trouble with the 2's this morning because I failed to notice that this 2 blocks these cells and this 2 blocks these cells, making this a 2. Well, better late than never. And remember how these 3 cells had to be a 2, 8, and a 9? Now that we have a 2 and an 8 in the same row, we now know that this is a 9, and this must be a 2, and this must be an 8. And that makes this an 8. And this is now a 1, 6, and this is a 1, 6. But since we have found some more digits, and we look at this 5 blocking these 3 cells, we now know that a 5 for this column needs to go here or here. While I can't say where yet, I now know that this goes 5 and this goes 5, puts a 5 in this cell up here, doesn't it? Now this is a 4 or a 9 and this is a 4 or a 9. And by the way, so is this. This is also a 4 or a 9, isn't it? Because we need to find a 1, 4, and a 9 to fill these three cells, and there's a 1 here. So this is a 4, a 9, and this is a 4, a 9, and that makes these two a 5 and a 7. And the pair is usually very helpful because now we know that a 7 must go here. There's a ghost 7 here, blocking this cell. This 7 blocks this cell, and these two 7s block these two cells. So the 7 must go here. And that should help us. I'm just realizing that since one of these two cells must be a 4, then both a 4 and a 9 need to go in two of these three cells, because the 9 here and the 9 here block these two cells, and there are no other cells in this column. So 4 and 9 will have to go here in two of these three cells. And the last digit to go in one of these three cells is going to be a 6, because this 6 here blocks this cell. And that makes this a 1, doesn't it? That's nice. Now I think we are getting somewhere. This is now a 6, and this is now a 1. And because we have this 1 here, this 1, 9 must be a 9, and this must be a 1. This is now a 4 or a 6, and this is a 4 or a 6, except there is a 6 already in this column. So this is a 4 and this is a 6. And now these two have to be a 4 and a 9, and there is a 4 already in this row. So the 9 must go here and the 4 here. And now these two cells have to be a 5 and a 1. There's a 1 here, making this a 5. And this a 1. And by the way, now this must be a 5 as well. Now we need a 1 for this cell, of course, and the last digit to go here is a 6. Because we found the 9 here, we can now place a 9 in this location and a 6 here to complete the row and the column. These two have to be now a 7 and a 6. There's a 6 here, so the 7 goes here and the 6 here. Let's see. These two have to be a 4 and a 9 still. This is a 4 and 9, this is a 5 and 7. Let me look at those two here. They have to be a 5 and a 9. There's a 9 in the row. So the 9 will go here and the 5 here. And that makes this a 9 and this a 4 and this a 9 and this a 4. This now must be a 4, making this cell here 7. And that completes the 7 and the 5 pair we had here. That was a very enjoyable New York Times Hard Sudoku today for a change. I thought it would have been easier, but it turned out to be quite challenging to solve without pencil marks. And frankly, even with pencil marks, I think you would not have completed the puzzle with Snyder notation alone. But as we've shown, without any notation at all, it's also possible. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and that you'll be back for more soon. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.